In the previous class, we have seen about different purchasing models. We have seen about elastic IP and we have seen about instance type. So before moving into the next topic. Okay. So we created an instance and we installed Apache on it and we added some HTML script. So later we discussed about elastic IP. So elastic IP is nothing but static IP. Whenever we create any instance, so by default there will be a public IP which will get automatically assigned, and this public IP will always keeps on changes whenever you restart the instance or whenever you stop and start the instance. So to avoid that, so we will be having a public IP and that public IP will be attaching it to it. And then later we discussed about different purchasing models, on-demand instances, reserved instances, spot instances, dedicated hosts, dedicated instances. On-demand instances ante whenever we want to create an instance and whenever we want to delete that instance if we don't need. So that we call it as an on-demand instance. So this on-demand instances pricing will be hourly basis. And coming to the reserved instances, you can reserve an instance for 1 year or 3 years or something. So if you can reserve the instance, for example, if you reserve it for 1 year and after using of 1 month, if you believe that you don't want that instance anymore, so obviously what you can do is you can delete that. Even though if you delete that instance, you have to pay for it. So that is called reserved instances. When if you reserve an instance of 1 year, you have to pay for 1 year. Even though if you are using it for 1 month or 2 months, it doesn't matter. And coming to the spot instances, as I said that there is a kind of a bidding procedure here. So coming to the bidding, let's say if you are going to specify 0.10 cents for spot instance. So the market value of the spot instance will always fluctuate. If it crosses uh, your maximum price, the instance will automatically get terminated. So that is called spot instances, and we will be using it for test instances and all, testings and all. And dedicated instances and dedicated hosts. So as I told you, if there is a physical host is maintained separately for our instances. So that is called dedicated instances and dedicated hosts. So this is what we have discussed in our previous session. And now let's move to the new concept called security group. Let's move to the new concept called security group. Security group. Okay. So let's try to understand. So even when you're creating an instance, if you remember, if I go back, if I click on launch instance, if I click on launch instance, see if you can scroll down here, if you can scroll down here under network settings, you can see the security group here. Okay, earlier we allowed the HTTP traffic as well. So let's try to understand why we are using this security group and why we need to configure this and what we can do in this. Okay, let's go back. So let's come discuss with a simple example. For example, let's say there is a college. Assume that this is college. This is a college. This is a college. So many people will go to the college and many people will come out from the college. Many people will go to the college and many people will come out from the college. Whenever they are going inside the college or whenever they are coming out of from the college, there will be a security who is standing here. There will be a security who is standing here. So he is a security. There will be a security who will be standing here. So many people will enter into the college and many people will come out from the college. So they has to cross this particular security. So whenever a person entering into the college or whenever a person coming out of from the college, so there will be a in-gate and out-gate, right? At in-gate and out-gate, there will be a security. Assume that if a student using a gate to enter into the college, that we can call it as a in-gate. And if a person using it to come out of the college, so it is out-gate. In-gate and out-gate. A person, if he is entering into the college, we call them as an in-gate, and a person is coming out of from the college, so he will use the out-gate. And if a student wants to enter into the college, he should cross this security, and security should give him permission to enter into the college. On what basis a security will allow a person inside the college? Based on some ID number or something, right? Based on some ID number, based on some ID or whatever it is, based on the ID. So now, how come the security knows that he should allow these many IDs having, with the students? So the college administration will give a list of the students that where he needs to allow into the college. So based on that ID number, security will allow inside to the college. So this is what will happen in the college, right? When there is a college, there will be a gate and there will be a security, and security will allow the students into the college based on the ID numbers. So that is what the context. The same thing will happen within the AWS account as well. So instead of we call it as a college, so this is nothing but EC2 instance. Instead of a student, instead of calling it as a student, we can call it as a user or request. If a request want to access EC2 instance, it should cross security. So here we're calling it as a security group. Here we're calling it as a security group. Now, so based on the ID number, a security is allowing a student to enter into the college, right? Here, based on the port number, based on the port number, based on the port number, the security group will allow user to access our EC2 instance. Understood? So based on the port number, whenever you access EC2 instance, so whatever the services which are running inside the instance, every service will run on a particular port number. So whenever you want to access an EC2 instance, so you should add the port as well. So let's say port 80 or SSH or whatever it is. Whenever you logged into the AWS EC2 instance, you will be using the SSH port. See, if I go back, see, you can see here, if I open the putty, right side port, you can see 22. So all SSH logins will happen with the help of a port number 22. So you can see connection type SSH here. SSH port number is 22. When you logged into the RDP port number is 3389. So you might have a question that earlier we created a Windows instance, earlier we created a Linux instance, but we have not allowed any port in the security group, but we can able to logged in. We logged in, right? So what will happen is whenever you create an instance, see, observe here. Here I'm trying to create an instance. Here, let's say, assume that if I'm selecting the Windows here, if I'm selecting the Windows here, if I scroll down, allowing the RDP traffic. So based on the operating system that I've selected there, whatever the port that we are using to log in, so that port is by default, it is allowing here. So that is the reason we didn't face any issue while logging into that instance. See, if I go back, if I select Amazon Linux here, and if I scroll down, so you can see by default allowing it SSH traffic. Now let's create a test instance, Amazon Linux, and let me create a key pair, this FB key pair, and let me create a new security group. If you click on edit here, you can create a new security group. Let's name it as Linux-SG. Let me add the description. Linux-SG. Scroll down and click on launch instance. See here, we are going to create SSH port. We are going to allow the SSH port. By default, it is getting allowed because we have selected the Linux machine and we've given the security group name as Linux-SSH launch instance. Click on instances. See here. So if I want to log in into this instance, click on the connect. So I'll try to log in it from my terminal. Copy it. So open the terminal. So let me move to the downloads. ls. Okay. So let me paste it here. Enter. Yes, enter. See, I logged into the Linux machine 172.31.4.210. So if I go back to the instances, 172.31.4.210. See, if I remove this, go to the security here, you can see the Linux-XG security group. If I click on this, if I edit inbound rules, and if I remove this SSH port, and if I save the rule, if I go back to the terminal, see, I can't type anything here. So it will be deactivated, right? Let me close this, terminate it, open a new one. And if I try to log in again, so it is showing me an error because I removed the SSH port from the security group. See what is happening here is, so if I go back to here, see, I created an instance. I created an EC2 instance. and I have a security group. So I should cross this to access the EC2 instance. This is security group. Now, if I try to log in into this instance, if I try to log in into this instance, so I should cross this security group. So I'm using an SSH login. So I'm trying to do an SSH login. I'm trying to do an SSH login. So definitely SSH port should be allowed here. SSH 22 port should be allowed here. Then only I can able to log in. See, that is what happening here. If I go to the terminal, I already removed the SSH port from the inbound rules. If I go back to the terminal and if I try to log in, so no chance of login. So let's go back and let's add SSH port again. Edit inbound rules, add rule, and add SSH here and put it anywhere IPv4. And let's save this. And if I go back to the terminal again, and if I give this 1 second, 65 dot, let's go to the instance. 1 dot, okay, this is not the IP address. Click on connect, copy this, paste it, enter. Yeah, I logged in. So let me clear all this. Yeah, 314210. 314210. We logged into the machine. Similarly, it's not just about SSH login. If you install something on this Linux instance, if you want to access that, you have to allow the respective port in the security group inbound rules. For example, now if I logged into this instance, okay, let me install Apache on it, sudo space -i. So commands to install Apache is yum space install space httpd space -y. Okay, so Apache is getting installed. Now let me start this service space httpd space start, enter. Now see, Apache will be running on port 80. So if I copy the public IP address, so by default when you type anything here, so it automatically takes the HTTP 80 port, or if it is not going to take, you have to give the colon 80. So automatically it will be taking the 80. So that is the reason I'm just giving it. So the page is not loading. See, if I go back to the security, if I go back to the security, I go back to the SG, edit inbound rules, add rule, HTTP, anywhere IPv4, save it. Now, if I go back and if I refresh, it is working. So, security group is the main place to control your traffic, which is going to the EC2 instance. Whenever you're working in real time, if a developer comes to you and if they say that I've installed something on EC2 instance, but I couldn't able to access it, the first place that you needs to check is security group. So what he installed and that respective port is allowed in the security group or not. If not, you have to allow it. And within the security group, you'll be having two different things. One is inbound rules and the other one is outbound rules. Inbound rules is something that the traffic which is going towards to the EC2 instance, so that crosses the inbound rules. The traffic which is coming from within the instance to outside, that is outbound. By default, by default, outbound traffic is all traffic is allowed. By default, outbound all traffic is allowed. Inbound, by default, everything is blocked. Only based on the operating system that you selected, SSH port is allowed or RDP port is allowed. So rest of the ports, whatever the ports that you want, you should able to allow it. Okay. And remember one thing, in security group, you can only allow the ports. You cannot block anything. So in the security group, by default, everything is blocked. You are just allowing whatever the port that you want. So I allowed SSH port, I allowed HTTP port. And if I install something else, I'll be allowing the other port. So that is about inbound rules and outbound rules. Again, within the inbound rules, if you remember this, see source here. See, if I give HTTP anywhere, so I can able to access this and you also can able to access this. I'm just copying this into the chat box. Can you try within your laptops? You'll also get the same page. I just added that in the chat box. Can you try and confirm me whether it is working for you or not? Can you try once?
Yeah, it was okay.
It is working, right? Now, if I go back, let's say, for example, if I go back to the inbound security rules, so if I remove this anywhere and if I just having my IP and save the rules, so it will be working for me because my IP means, see, if you go back to the security group, so my IP means if I click on edit inbound rules, my IP means 49205. See, if you open Google and if I type what is my IP and if I click here, so IPv4 address is 250.105. See here 250.105. So it will be working for me. I save it. Okay. So this will work for me now. So the same thing will not work for you now. Can you test it now? It will not work for you because I allowed the traffic only from my network who are connected to my internet or my Wi-Fi. So they can able to only be able to access it. So for you, you should not be able to access now. The page will get still reloaded, so it won't gives you anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, can someone just open your Google and just type what is my IP? And can you just give me your public IP so that I'll add your public IP so that it will work for you, it will not work for me and others as well. Can someone gives your public IP? Just type what is my IP, go to the first link and just give me the IPv4 address. Okay, let me add this, go back and remove this and just adding your IP here, giving custom /32. /32 you have to give. You'll get to know why we are giving /32. When you are specifying a single IP address, you need to give that. Okay, save it. Now, if I refresh this, it won't work for me. Now it should work for you. Vamsi, it should work for you. Can you confirm? It should work for you.
Yeah.
So it will work for you. So that is how the security group. If I now change to the Lalita's IP address, if I go back, if I edit inbound rules, if I remove this, if I add this /32, if I save this, now again it will work for her. So that is how security group will work. So security group is all about to control the traffic to your EC2 instance. In general, in organizations, they will be having a predefined security groups with the set of rules that they wanted to allow. So every time whenever we create an instance, we are creating a new security group while practicing. But in general, in the organizations, they won't always create a new security groups every day. They'll create it one time and they will reuse the same security group for all their production instances. So whatever the group of instances that they wanted to use, so they'll use the same instances. So that is how the security group will work. Any doubts from the security group? Any doubt from the security group?
No, no, sir. No.
Okay, Mohammed. Okay.
No, sir.
Now, so till now, we logged into our EC2 instance with the help of um, putty or with the help of terminal and all. But here, whenever we logged in from the putty or whenever we logged in from the terminal, always we have used PEM file. But again, in general, it's not a best practice to share the PEM file with everyone. So we have to set up a password for our Linux instance. Let's see how we can set up that password for our Linux instance. So let me clear this. Let me clear this. Okay, so here cd is a change directory in the Linux. The command cd is change directory to move from one folder to the other folder. So we have to use this cd /ssh and sorry cd space /etc. etc is in another folder, which is something like all the settings will be there in the Linux, like something like a control panel in our Windows machine. Okay, /ssh, enter. If I click on ls, is a command to list to whatever the folders or files which we have in that particular cd space /etc/ssh, and you will be having a folder called sshd_config. You'll be having a file, not folder, sorry. Here, vi space, to open this, vi space sshd_config. Open this, okay? See, let me go back and let me show you. Whenever you give ls, whatever it is showing in the blue color, so that is a folder. Whatever it is showing in a white color, so that is file, okay? To open that file, to open and to edit that file, we use this vi command, vi space sshd, that particular file name. You can see this file, right? Whenever you open a file, it can be a new file or it can be an existing file to write something. You always need to click on I in your keyboard to get into the insert mode. See bottom, you can't see any insert now. If I click on I now, I can see this insert. Now here the mouse will not work. With the help of this down arrows, there is an option called password authentication and it is set to no. See, the password authentication is set to no. So what I'm going to do is I'm just making it yes. And now after editing the file, to save and to exit the file, you need to click on escape first to come out of from the insert mode. Click on escape and hold the shift and press the colon WQ, save and exit. Now SSHD service reload. SSHD connection. SSHD_ config. Sorry, spelling wrong. Service SSH_config reload. Service space. Okay. So it's okay, no problem. Now to set up the password, passwd space ec2-user enter. So it is asking for the new password. You can set up a password. Enter. So again, you can retype the password. It won't be visible. You have to just keep on typing and click on enter. That's it. So that is how you'll be setting up a password. So with this password, you can log in into your machines without using a PEM file. So directly what you can do is, if I go to the connect, you don't need to specify this. You don't need to fb.pim and all, you don't need to specify. Just SSH, just copy this public IP of the instance, just public IP of the instance. And if you go to the terminal, SSH EC2 hyphen user at the rate that IP address, enter. So you have to restart the instance. We just, change the password, right? To apply the settings, you have to restart. So you can work in this way. Let's copy the public IP 65.195.65.45. So you don't need to load any PPK directly. You can open it, accept it. So EC2 hyphen user. So since you have to, once you restart the instance, it will work. We have not restarted the instance. So let me just go back. Let me just stop and start the instance. Or else what we can do is, let me try with another command. If it works, we don't need to restart the instance. Go space -i service SSH. Yeah, done. So now let's try. Open the putty. Go back. 65.195.44. 65.195. 65.195.44. Open it. EC2 hyphen user. Yeah, it is asking for password. I'm giving the password. Yeah, I logged in. So without giving this PEM file or PPK file, if you have the password directly, you can log in the password. So let me list out those commands which I just typed on the chart terminal. So what I have done is, first click on the terminal. So here, first I logged into the instance, and then sudo space -i, then cd space /etc space/ssh, then vi space sshd underscore config, and then change password authentication from no to S, and click on escape, Shift:/WQ to save and exit. Okay, you have to use this to set up a password. So we learned two things today. One is we explored the security group, and we have seen how to set up a password for Linux machine. So just learn these two, and then tomorrow we'll go to the new concept. Clear?
Yes, sir.